Okay, hi guys. First of all, many thanks to Rich McClellan for suggesting this way of staying in touch with you. But most of all, a big thanks to Bob Kelly for organizing the whole thing, and I just wish I could be there with you. But unfortunately, as you've probably heard, my second and third sons are graduating tomorrow morning up at Vallejo, and there was just no way I could be up there in time for it. So here I am, this is the best you get. We're taping it in my office here. I'm still working at UH, University of Hawaii, having fun and deciding that life is exactly what you make it, and trying not quite as much fun as I had 30 odd years ago back in the late 60s, but I'm trying to make the most of it. When I was thinking about what I should do, I thought, well, first of all, I've tried to do a logical time sequence, but I regret to say that I found that my memory was slipping a little bit, and I was saying, now, did that happen the second year or the first year or what? So what I want to do is just hit some highlights and see where we go from there, and hopefully this will trigger some good memories for you guys as well. The first thing, of course, was I was totally amazed. I'd been in the Santa Barbara campus about 3 days, wasn't sure what was happening. I was a strange, gawky Englishman, and somebody got in touch with me and said that Bob Kelly and Mike Jeffries want to talk to you. And I had no idea who these guys were, but somehow we met, and Bob was offering an office and things like that, and Mike was doing his usual super sales job of this incredible team that they had going, and crew was on the map, and all they needed was the class of an Englishman to get them to the next height. And I thought, well, I really don't know much about coaching, and I'm not sure I know much about crew either. But they didn't seem to hear that, and suddenly I'm in the corner office there, and Bob is saying everything's fine. So that was the start. I met Mike and all the other guys on that first team. I think we had about 9 people, and it seemed that we'd gone as much to recruit guys who were the right size as also people who had cars, because we were on a pretty tight budget then. So what are the things that stripped back in my memory? Well, I guess one of the key things that we always have to think back to are the parents, the great hospitality we used to have when we were traveling up and down the coast at regattas. And of course, thinking about regattas, I could not believe this absurd, strange, weird American habit that you actually gave away a shirt. We were broke. How could we possibly give away any more money? But we had to give our shirts away at regattas. And the regattas were overall fun. There was that one time at Lake Merritt when Mike Tremon was my great assistant coach, and we'd had a little bit of a chat earlier in the day because Mike was telling me things, and I said, for God's sake, Tremon, if you tell me one more obvious thing, I'm going to punch you, which was a ridiculous thing for me to say to Mike in those days. Nevertheless, so I'm carefully bringing in a shell that had lost, and I'm in the very nice blazer that I had. We had class as a team, if nothing else. And it's at Lake Merritt, and I carry on walking, and the dock finishes, but I carry on walking. Mike says, when I ask him why he didn't tell me, Coach, you told me not to tell you anything else obvious. So, but yeah, Mike was fun. In fact, of course, he was the one who led me to my current wife, but a little bit about that in a minute. Well, what else do I remember? There was that awful time at USC, that regatta, when Bob McEwen was so mad with the boat that USC had given us that he punched the wall with his right hand, and so he was out for the rest of the regatta, which was a terrible waste because he was a key man in those days. Lake Kachuma, of course, the site of so many fun activities, building those various boat sheds. Rich there was sort of, as a naval engineer, we were all depending on him, and I don't know quite how those things balance, but they did. We had that a great floating dock with those orange styrofoam floaters, which I'd picked up in LA. I don't know where or why, but that was the time I found out what a stake bed truck was. And of course, Lake Kachuma, and suggesting the drives up there in the morning in those green-gray carryalls, and I think they were called carryalls. Nobody really wanted to chat at 5 o'clock in the morning, especially on the colder mornings. But once we got to the lake, it was so gorgeous, quiet and still, and we were the only guys out there. And I'm never quite sure how we got to Lake Kachuma in terms of how we got permission to use it, but the head warden really took a shine to us and said, yeah, this is, I like you guys, and you aren't going to pollute the water. I'm sure we got into some sorts of trouble, and I seem to recall explaining away various little problems, but it was just a fun activity going up there. We remember when we had our first show from Hastings Harcourt. My goodness. And of course the rumor was that some poor Shell old lady had to sacrifice her all to get that. Kathy Burke, I believe, was the name. I don't know why that would still stay in my mind after all these years. But we felt so good when we got that shell. And of course, talking about shells, we had a big party when we celebrated that day, and parties certainly seemed to be the name of the game for us. We enjoyed ourselves. In fact, thinking back, and I guess it's always easier when you're reminiscing, that life was fun in those days, and crew was just simply part of the fun that we could all take care of. The one worrying occasion was coming back from a regatta up in the Bay Area, and we had that accident at Paso Robles. Fortunately, nobody was hurt, but it still was a bit of a shock to us. And what else did I put down here? Oh, yes, the meat hook. How could I forget the meat hooks? Yes, I remember the look on the Irvine coach when Mike taped a meat hook to that shell. The coach was so mad. I forgot what he told me, and how dare we damage his boats like that. Of course, the best thing was we won, and so Mike's team came home with t-shirts. But yes, those was a good group of heavies. Then there were those times that people went off to Detroit. I think Denny was one of the group that did that, and I'm not quite sure what they did in Detroit during the day, but somebody seemed to be paying for them to do it, and it seemed to be another activity that we could get involved in. Maybe a little bit like the spring break that we organized for the Dos Pueblos High School one year. I think we were trying to make sure we had Chancellor Cheadle's support. I knew that his son was in Dos Pueblos, and so you bet he was indeed part of the spring crew that year. I guess the other thing that I remember is it must have been terrible for you guys putting up with this strange Englishman. Nobody else talked about bow and stroke side, but you put up with it and seemed to survive, and other people looked at us and said, weird, weird, weird. And of course we did have our own chaplain, Father Doherty from St. Mark's over in IV. That was, we seemed to think it was a coup to have a chaplain with us at regattas. I'm sure it was politically incorrect by today's standards, but back in the late 60s there weren't too many standards around, I don't think. And then of course I mentioned Mike Tremon and my wife, and it was kind of 75, I guess, and I needed a date. And by that time Mike had set up a women's team, which from the old-fashioned English approach, this was the weirdest thing you could do. But I said, hey Mike, I need a date. He said, well, come and check them out. Not quite a cattle call, you understand, ladies, but just to sort of see who was there. And there was a little lady in the bow of one of his shells, and I said, I'll take that one. And that was 33 years ago, so we're still going strong. 4 sons and 1 daughter. The 4 of the boys have all gone Hawaiian paddling, and one of the boys, in fact one of those graduating tomorrow, did crew up at Cal Maritime, watching their shell last year at the San Diego Classic. I thought, boy, that looks very like us in our early days. So some things, I guess, never change. I'm really sorry that I can't be there. It would have been such fun to meet with you all. But as I close, I'd like to do 2 things. One, I'd like to thank Bob again for organizing this, and also thank him for just putting up with us. I mean, he must have suffered grief from us. I don't think any of the other rec teams gave him quite the hassles that we did. And then the other thing is, I'd like to say that we are still here in Hawaii, Sarah and I, and various kids from time to time. You are most welcome. We'd love to see you, reminisce in a little more relaxed way with a glass of wine or 2, or maybe even 3. I'm still working, but that doesn't matter. I can always make time to see old friends. So have a marvelous time. Just think of me, and we look forward to the 50th reunion, I guess, coming up sometime, Bob. Have a great day, all of you. Aloha.